Hello? How did you get this number? Don't you know he's listening? The 13. He's here.
You have entered the 13, a place where real stories about music, touring, and the beyond are told. Music does something to us. We all experience it in our own way. It can affect our senses, transport us through time, and release emotions. On this podcast, we will talk with people about the power of music and the beyond. What does the beyond mean? Let's find out together. Turn on your metronomes because this time is about to be tracked. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 13. I am Ryan 13. Today we are joined by the Thunder God himself, Billy Sheehan. Billy, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. It's Sheehan, not Sheehan. Sheehan. It's like Ian with a sh in front of it.
Sheehan. I always heard the King's X guys. I thought they always said it a little different myself, so I wasn't 100%
Here in
sure.
Nashville, sometimes Billy Sheehan. So
Sheehan. Okay, so
Sheehan.
okay, hey, I got it right, or I got it wrong, and I have it right now.
Right.
No
matter.
So what? For the people who don't know, and this is going to be a really weird thing. This is what I tell all my guests, but for the people who don't know you, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I play bass, and I've done it for about 55 years. Done about 6,000 shows. I don't know how many records I've made, but every time there's an autograph thing, somebody brings a pile of CD covers like that. And
oh yeah.
I say, "Are you sure I played on this?" He goes, "It says right there." So I've been playing a long time. I played in Talas, my band from Buffalo, who's had a new record coming out after 30 some years. David Lee Roth, Mr. Big was probably my most successful band. UFO, I did a tour with them. I played with Steve Vai. I played with a band called Niacin, Dennis Chambers on drums, with a Hammond B3 player. And now Winery Dogs, which is really one of my favorite bands too. Sons of Apollo, and a few other things through the years.
That's awesome. That's exactly the list I put on my sheet of paper here. Like all of those. I was like, perfect. This is great. I didn't have to add anybody else. Well, you know all your bands, and the Winery Dogs. I literally just got into y'all. Like I knew you had joined a band with Mike Portnoy, but I guess I just hadn't heard it yet. But I started listening to it the other day. I was like, holy crap! Like, why did I take so long to get to this? This is great. I met Mike like in 2004 once at a King's X show, and he ran into Doug's dressing room, opened the door, and looked down at me. And I was hanging out on the couch with my buddy Sean, and he goes, "Where's Doug?" I was like, "He's in the shower." And he goes, "Tell him I need some green later," and then left. And I was like, "That was Mike Portnoy. He just walked in here." No, it was pretty funny. I thought it was it's the only time I ever met him. And then he let me stand behind his drum kit for a little while, which was cool. Oh yeah. So our mutual friends, like Doug from King's X told me to tell you hello, by the way, the other day. He said, "I love Billy. Tell him I said hi."
Well, I love Doug. He's a wonderful guy, and I've known him for many, many years, and he's fantastic.
Okay, awesome. I'll tell him you said what's up. How do you guys know each other? Because they talk about you all the time on the tour bus, like all the time.
Well, we were me and Doug. You mean?
You and Doug, or you and Ty, or you and Jerry? Everybody's like a big.
We were early. Mr. Big was on Atlantic Records, and we were both there at the same time, kind of the same people working with us. And the first moment I heard King's X, I absolutely loved them. So every time we saw them, we would just gush superlatives on what they did and how great they were. Then Gresham Goes to Nebraska came out second record, and that was even as good as the first. I couldn't say better because they're just so great. And we've just been a huge fans, and we've spread the word of King's X far and wide to people. I remember turning certain musicians on to King's X that loved them so much that they put bands together to kind of be like King's X. I mean, professional pro musicians and such. And they've been copied by so many people, their sound and their songs, and I just love them. So every time Doug moved to LA my last few years that I was in LA, so we got to hang around a bit more. But I moved out now, but I still see him a lot.
Okay, cool. Yeah, when he moved to LA, I was sad because I met him in Katy, Texas, where I'm from, and we always got to hang out. He was in my wedding. You know, I've known him for 25 years or whatever, and
Mm.
he's a great dude. So the winery dogs, do you guys have anything new coming out? I think you posted something on Facebook the other day. This is about Talas though, but it was a Talas song. Was that a new Talas song?
It is a new Talas song because it's a new Talas record.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Since well, the last time we played together was 1985, and that's the name of the record. We went back in a little time machine and got all those songs that we were performing live that were never recorded properly, and did it. Your initial comment about the Winery Dogs was we haven't. That new record is done, mixed, mastered, ready to go.
Awesome.
That will probably come out. Maybe I don't know, but the Talas record comes out first next month, and then after that, at some point, will be the Winery Dogs record.
Well, that's great. The song I heard was amazing. Like I was like, and it was like you posted it, and like maybe 5 seconds later, like everyone in the world loved it. You know, it's really that was cool.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I did a bunch of interviews earlier today with some British and European press, and they're over the moon about it. So I'm very, very, very pleased and thankful to hear that. People are really enjoying it so far.
Awesome, great. So here's a weird thing I like to do on this. I like to just talk tour stories. I have favorite tour stories from stuff I've done with King's X or the bands I've been in. I know you probably have a lot of tour stories you probably like, but don't really share that often. What's one that just sticks out? This like I can be from the 70s, the 80s, 90s, now, yesterday. Like, what's one that sticks out to you?
Well, there are. I've been asked many times to do a book because I've got quite a collection of stories, uh, uh, this various subjects. Bands that destroyed their own careers. There's a whole bunch of them.
Right, absolutely.
And some that would be I wouldn't say in front of mixed company.
Understood.
But and all kinds of different categories of what's gone on stage and what's gone on backstage and on the tour bus and stuff. But generally, the bands I've been in have been pretty clean living. I mean, I haven't even had an aspirin since 1971.
Okay.
You know, I don't do any drugs at all. I enjoy a glass of wine or maybe a shot of whiskey or so, a little bit of that. That's fine. Sure. But and most of the bands I've been in have been pretty clean as far as that goes. I've never really had to deal with any kind of that insanity, fortunately. Sure. And fortunately for all my compatriots, we're all generally all healthy. But back in the club days, we had all kinds of wacky things happen because we were at the mercy of a lot of factors and forces that we could not control.
Yeah.
And remember one time we got to this club in Talas, and we got there, and they gave us the dimensions of the stage. You know, they sent it to us, so we knew how big the club was, and we could fit all our gear. We had to make sure that the club can handle, because we had a huge PA and sound and lights and all that. So we get there, and the stage is about 10 feet wide. I go, we can't even get our drum riser up there. And there was an opening act too, and they're out in the parking lot waiting for us to make a decision. So I called our agent, and he said, well, we'll call the owner and have him come down there. I said, oh, man, there's no way we can set up. If we set up, the PA will be looking in between the two stacks like, hi, is anybody out there? You know,
right.
It's just too small. And no dressing room. They said they had a dressing room. No nothing. They said all these things, and nothing was there. So and we were just in the beginning of a run of about like 20 cities. So I sat in the office for a while waiting for the manager to come, and I noticed a couple of papers there. I didn't go through anything, but I just noticed a couple of envelopes and the addresses on there and various things like that, and made note of it. Then the owner comes and said, "Look, we got we can't even set up half the PA. We just can't fit in here. Unfortunately, you told us, here's the thing where you told us it was this. We can plainly see that it is not, and we just can't do it, and it would be unfair. So I'm really sorry. We needed a gig. You can't go out and you can't blow off gigs.
Right.
Every gig's money adds up to the point halfway through the tour where you hit go from the red to the black, and then from then on you make your profit. So you can't just throw a gig away. It's one of the worst things you can do is to cancel a gig.
Right.
Even on a professional level, it just causes so much trouble. So we didn't want to do it. So the guy, a friend of his, showed up, and they're out there talking. And I said to the crew guys, well, because I said, make a show of it, at least pull some of the stuff out of the truck like we're trying, but we know we can't fit it in here.
Right.
So I go, okay, put it back in the truck. And I go, and I thought, well, I feel bad. I went over to the guy and said, hey, I'm really sorry about the miscommunication. I apologize. The opening act here is going to do the show tonight, and you should have a good night. So, but I really apologize for whatever. It wasn't our fault at all. It was his fault, but I just want to try and keep good politics. So I said, I'm really sorry. And he goes, maybe someday we'll be able to work together pretty soon. And he goes, not within 500 miles of my bar. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to make sure you guys don't ever play in any bar within 500 miles of here. I say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but we can't get our gear in here. And then he mumbled something. He's pissed off and everything. And so we get in the car and start driving. And I see a phone booth that says, hold on a second, pull over. God damn it. I was pissed. Yeah. And so it's pretty much standard at all rock shows during that time. There's the power that comes in from the pole outside to the building in a big giant thing. And there's these live wires coming into the circuit breaker box. And you take alligator clips and clip them onto the box for your lighting. Okay. Because it'll blow every circuit directly to the feed that's going into the building. And it's a little dangerous. And sometimes we even have guys hold on to the other guy's shirt and get ready if he gets hit to pull him off. And we had a couple times when the clip hit the metal side and bam, blew up and everything like that. So totally illegal, but every band did it, and everywhere, every place had it. Once in a while, somebody gets smart and they put in a proper plug, the big 220 plug like you plug a dryer into, and then that started to go on. But there was, that was standard operating procedure. So we pull over, and I called the local fire department. I forgot how I even got that number, whatever. Anyway, I said, hi, we're from a band out of Buffalo, New York. We're supposed to play at the blah, blah, blah club. And for some reason, the club owner, I just wanted to check with you guys about our liability. The club owner said we could take alligator clips and clip them right onto the hot wire coming off the utility pole outside. And I just wanted to make sure if is that legal, and if it is, if something happens, are we liable? And the guy goes, well, I could tell the guy was like, well, thanks for telling us, we'll check into it. So we took off. We go on to the next. We go, okay, we'll stay in the hotel we're supposed to stay in tomorrow night, pay an extra night. We're there. The phone rings we got in super late. So the phone rang early in the morning, about 4:30 or 5 in my room. Hello. It's the agent. He goes, what did you do? I go, I didn't do anything. What are you talking about? After you guys left the club, about 10 fire trucks came roaring into this guy's parking lot, went through the whole place, got every violation, cited him with like a stack of papers of violation, and shut him down. I go, I don't know what happened. Well, so we got our once a little bar band got back at a club owner. Generally, we were best friends with most all the club owners.
Absolutely,
that's why it pissed me off that the guy went after me in a way, threatening not to ever have me play again near his club or in his state or whatever.
500 miles from the club. Yeah, that's crazy. Well,
so for once,
great story.
For once, we got one in.
That's awesome. I played in a band called Razor 13 that Doug sang in, and we had a show in where was it? It was Fort Worth, but a similar thing. We showed up and they hadn't done any promotion for us. The stage wasn't big enough for us. Everything was wrong, but we were playing no matter what. And we somehow got in there, played, and got paid, but we played to no one. It was just an empty stage in Fort Worth, but hey, we got paid.
We played, I think it was in Delaware, on a club that was on a pier out over the water. Giant club too. And it was like a 2-0 Wednesday night. We got there. There was literally one table, 4 guys at the table. And if you don't play, they're not going to pay you. So, well, let's do the show. We did it like there was 10,000 people there. And they were out there and they were clapping, drinking beers. We said hello to them afterwards, whatever. Right. I ran into every one of those guys over the years.
Really?
I was walking down Sunset Boulevard. I goes, hey, you remember you played this club over the water? And me and my friends were like, yeah, I remember. There's only 4. A few years later, same thing, in LA. Another time I played a show, went out back. Hey, we remember a club in Delaware? And so I ran into all 4 of those guys at one point or another as the years went by. So a lot of stories like that.
That's awesome. It's totally worth it then. You played at the 4 guys and
they were like a human billboards for us for years. So.
Absolutely. Hell yeah. I have questions that some of my friends asked me to ask you.
All right.
And so
as long as it isn't who are my influences, I'll answer anything.
Okay. This is not that. This is from Marzi Montazeri. He used to play with Phil Anselmo and the Illegals and a whole bunch of other bands, X-Forter and everything. He says, when and where did you start tapping?
1974, Billy Gibbons and ZZ Top opening up for Alice Cooper, Buffalo, New York, War Memorial Auditorium, New Year's Eve. And I looked up, and we knew the promoter, so we were in the front row or the second row. And I was actually in the shadow of Billy Gibbons' hat from the backlighting. It was unbelievable. He was right there, 1974. And I saw him go, bend a note, and hit it. And I thought, I had no idea you could hit a note with this hand on the fretboard. Unbelievable. So my friend, we're looking at each other. Did you see that? Unbelievable. So I got home, and sure enough, this might work. And I started to develop a little thing about it. And that was my shtick for a long time until 78, about 4 or 5 years later. And Eruption came on the radio. Oh, there goes. But Ed is the indisputable king of popularization and standardization, if you will, of that. I would never be so foolish to make any kind of a claim, but I was doing it in 74 from Billy Gibbons. And so I told Billy Gibbons, I had a great opportunity to meet him. Sorry, and when I do interviews, people always ask me, where'd you get tapping? On 1974, Billy Gibbons, 74, Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons. And so I finally met Billy one time in a studio. Lita Ford was recording, and a friend of mine asked me to come on down and say hello. And I went, and Billy was there. I thought, unbelievable. And so I met him, we talked. So they went and recorded. Me and Billy sat in the kitchen of the recording studio and talked. He's a walking encyclopedia. He's just the greatest. He knows about everything. So we were talking and hanging and hanging and talking and talking and hanging. I said, well, it's getting kind of late. We better get out of here. He goes, hold on a second. I got something for you. He reaches in his bag and pulls out, I got it on the wall. I can't turn my camera to you right now. Pulls out a framed photo of himself autographed to me. And I said, wow. Apparently he knew I was going to be there that night.
Right.
I go, wow, what's this for? And he goes, I read what you've been saying about me in the interviews. He goes, keep it up.
Awesome. That's so cool. What a cool story.
Yeah, he actually came to my home in LA and played on my first solo record, or not my first, my third solo record. And what a grand master. He brought a guitar, but I think he might have just grabbed the wrong guitar. It was strung too heavy for him. He actually plays on 8s or 7s now, really super light. But as soon as the tone is unmistakable. So the guitar wasn't really working for me. So I had a $120 fake Chinese Strat that a friend had given me as a joke gift, but I had tuned it down B to B, B-E-A-D-F sharp B. So it was tuned to baritone. So the strings were just flopping around on it. It was a cool sound, though. I use it to write a lot because it's super deep, floppy sound. So I said, Billy, you want to try this? So he took the $120 Strat, plugged it into a pod, Line 6 pod, and that's on the record. So as soon as I play that song for somebody, I say, okay, tell me who you think the guitar player is. The moment it starts, like, Billy Gibbons, instantly recognizable that it's Billy Gibbons. It's hilarious.
Yeah, dude, that's so cool. I ran into him at a sushi place here in Houston accidentally. I was just hanging out with some friends, and here comes Billy Gibbons walking by, all willy nilly, and it was my wife's girlfriends, and they didn't know who he was, and I like.
He's probably one of our greatest treasures in America right now. When Dusty passed away, that was catastrophic.
Was super sad.
And his new bass player, Elwood, that was Steve Vai's guitar tech on the Eat 'Em and Smile tour, and that's why I have skateboard stickers on my basses, because they were getting so wet on tour. Elwood gave me a bunch of stickers I put on over the bare wood to keep it from getting wet, and that was where all my skateboard stickers come from. Now he's playing bass for ZZ Top, and he's a wonderful guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, he is playing bass. There's a show coming around here not too long from now with Elwood playing bass. Speaking of techs, do you have a longtime tech, or are you like Doug and just kind of grab whoever you can, or do you tech yourself?
I do a lot of things myself, but I have a gentleman named Jeff Mallard who's been with me for, since easily over 20 years.
Oh, nice.
We've been together, and he takes care of my basses on stage. He's usually the stage manager as well. But I'm really low maintenance. I don't really need anybody to do much of anything for me. I'll usually change my strings myself, because if there's anything not right, I'll know about it right away, and I won't get any surprise when I walk on stage.
Right.
And plus, it gives, the crew guys usually are overworked and underpaid, so it gives one less thing for him to have to deal with. I just change my strings, but I like to do that. I see where everything sits. Any problem with anything, I can see it right away and correct it. Monitor-wise, I need so little, and it's just I've never been too dependent on a tech. Back in the day, before we had techs, I built my own gear, my own racks, did all my own bass modifications. I never refretted a neck, but I did all the fret dressing and fret work and all the electronics and pickups and ground hum troubleshooting for giant racks of gear. So I generally never needed a guy. It's nice. It's a nice luxury to have one, but usually I make life easy for him. If I went to Japan one time to tour with a Japanese band for a summer, and the crew guy, he had the easiest gig in the world, because I'd hand him my bass freshly strung. Just make sure it's in tune before he give it to me. Okay, thanks. All right. Halfway through the show, I give him a little wave. We're fine. Show's end here. Have a beer.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome, Doug. I used to tech for Doug. He made me string his 12 string all the time, and it'd be like, it was like 5 minutes before the show, and we realized that we had Bass World was all set up, and Ty's Guitar World was all set up, and what we didn't know was when we were getting the band ready to come on stage, they had been blasting the fog machine. And the fog machine, which none of us saw, was pointed directly at Doug's 12 string, which he started using on the second song. So they came out there and pushed it back a little bit, and I went upstairs. I was in Europe, and I went and restrung the whole thing and made it back to him by the fourth song. But anyway, long story short, how long it takes to tune a 12 string. It was forever, and it wasn't really right.
Right on.
About it. Cool, man. Let me move on to another fan or friend. This one's from my buddy Vincent Fink, and he says, do you think you'd ever do another album with David Lee Roth?
It's up to Dave.
Okay, and this is something somebody asked me on the way home today. They were like, back when you played with David Lee Roth, did he fill all the Jack Daniels bottles with iced tea?
No, that was the guy in Quiet Riot did that. Dave busted him for it, and that was a joke up. So people through time have confused the two.
This guy was a roadie or a stagehand and told my friend that, and then that's why they asked me. Okay, I didn't know that. That's good to know.
No, Dave's an honest man, and that was all real. And then Kevin Dubrow saw him do it, so I'll get it. I'll fill it with iced tea, but he got busted for it. So.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad he did it for real then, and not the other dude. What the P bass? Your wife, the wife.
There she is, right there.
Wow. How long? I mean, how long?
Next to her sister, which is very little known about her. She was always on the truck when we played back in the day, I had it as a backup bass.
Really?
I don't know if I ever played a show with it, maybe a song or two. And then next to it is the 30-year anniversary Yamaha Attitude, which is done in the same colors as the original wife bass.
Man, that's awesome. I play bass a little bit, and man, look at that collection. I got one. I haven't played in a long time. I've been in oil and gas for a while.
There's it keeps on going, and then around the corner there's another wall, and then 4 racks as well. So there's a lot of basses, but generally all my basses, I don't have anything really. I have a couple collectibles, but I've never really been into some vintage old things, because most all of them are utility instruments.
Sure.
Designed to be on stage, to be sweated on, maybe get a bump here and there or whatever. I just posted a photo of me throwing the bass in the air on Facebook. That's that bass. That's the original life bass. That was, people always ask me the different basses I use through the years. I go, there's only one.
There's only one.
That's what I use that for everything. I use that for all the way up to David Lee Roth, and then I only use the pink Yamaha bass, which is next to the.
I saw a picture of that on your website the other day. Yeah.
I only use that for an encore on the Eat 'em a Smile tour. Then I use it on a couple of records, but most everything I've done prior to 91, when the first version of this Attitude bass came out, was that bass. So
when I was looking, because you've made this really easy for me. I ask everybody about gear, and I like to talk about gear because it's fun to me. But you have a whole list on your website of everything you use. And I clicked on it and I was like, I don't know what half this stuff is.
The website's out of date, and that stuff was used at one point. And I had giant racks. I started with rack gear in about 1972 or 3. I don't know, but I had to be one of the first guys to have racks of gear on stage.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anvil racks. They had bud racks, which are made of steel. Okay. You'll see them in radio stations, big high racks.
Yeah.
All made of metal. So I had 2 of them in anvil cases, because Anvil didn't make racks yet. No, actually, we didn't have Anvil cases yet. I remember when we first saw our first Anvil case, and then I had 2 cases made for those racks eventually. And then they came out with Anvil racks, so I used those racks. But I had a rack going up to it's taller than I was, and had all Pro Audio stuff in it, Pro Audio or custom made. So I stopped using regular amps, like about in the mid 70s.
Okay.
Custom preamps, Pro Audio compression and crossovers, BGW power amps. The BGW 750 was famous because it was used for the movie Earthquake in the theaters to shake the subwoofers when the earthquake happened. That was their sales pitch. All JBL Pro Audio speakers back in the day. So it was. I learned a lot about audio and how things work, how compression works, and EQ and things of that nature. So that was really handy for me eventually later on when I, especially if I don't have a tech or a crew guy, we'd be playing a show and something would go wrong. And one of the tech guys would look at me like, I don't even know where to start. And I go, check the input of the crossover. The cord came out. Holy cow. How did he know that? So you get pretty conversant with all the gear through the years. And now the Helix is here, and it's 2 of my personal components, my Pierce preamp and my Ashley Audio compressor. They use my units to model in the software of the Helix. So when you buy the Helix, you get my original Dan Pierce BC1 preamp, which was on everything I recorded since about 1980, and also the Ashley Audio compressor, which is a really sweet compressor. So now I just have to plug it in, dial a few things up. I got my whole rack in a little box, and it's a beautiful thing.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, like emulators a few years ago. So you mentioned Line 6 Pod, and when the Line 6 Pod first came out, I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's all in this little bean shaped thing. But it wasn't where it is now,
No.
emulation has come a long way.
And when that pod first came out, the kidney shaped pod, I go, man, I can't wait to plug this into some tower amps. This is going to be amazing loud.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
It was a different thing between quiet in the studio and loud through speakers on stage. So, but it was good, but it really wasn't totally usable live. And then they corrected all that now, I believe. And I was talking with a couple of famous producers at a party here in Nashville. And there was about 5 of us in a circle, and they were all laughing because I don't know how many years it's been since we plugged in a cabinet and put a mic in front of it. They just don't do it anymore.
Wow.
The guitars are all done with modeling. Pretty amazing.
Doug just got one of his. He got that Tech 21 thing going for him too. So instead of carrying his giant racks upstairs, his roadies and techs, since I don't work for them anymore, have had the easiest job ever. But I'll tell you what, going to Smith's old bar in Georgia and trying to walk straight up the flight of stairs with Doug's 2 racks was hell on this guy and whatever guy we got from the show. I mean, that stuff was heavy. You guys would have all kinds. I'm sure you had all kinds of stuff in there, this racks upon racks upon racks of just fun stuff.
It was taller than me. It was taller than I was.
Oh my gosh.
I'm 6'1", so.
And then, me too. And so you had backup. You probably had backups in there too. Like, so if something went down, you could just plug out and plug in.
Yeah, we were prepared for any eventuality.
That's awesome. That's great. I remember one time being in, where were we? Florida. That's right. Because the walls were water. It was so humid, and we were playing an outside stage, and Doug's rig went down. And it's the first time it had ever happened to me. I'm like a new tech. And he looks at me. He's like, there's another one on the bus. And I had to go run and grab another SVT I think it's that one that's sitting back there. So moving on. Look, I got a list of printout list of all your stuff, but we'll move on from gear because I know you got a lot of stuff to do, and I really appreciate you being here with me.
Yeah, I've been practicing a lot. I put hours and hours and hours a day practicing. So
really,
yeah,
like you have to. Man, dude, I was watching a video of you the other day, and like you're already so good, and you're still moving forward. You haven't ever plateaued.
Never. No, I got to keep going. There's more. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I spent hours. Get up, feed the cat, come down here, and start hitting it. And if I'm tired, I'm laying on the couch and I got to lay down. No, get up, hit it again. And but it's been great. I've learned all kinds of new things, got all kinds of new moves, rehabilitated old things that I threw away years ago, and fine-tuned things. And then I also took all my basses, pretty much all of them, one at a time, out to my garage workshop and did the fret dressing and the deoxit on the pots inside and every little maintenance thing they needed. So, and I usually post about it too, and people find it pretty interesting. So I'm going to continue on with that.
Yeah, awesome. Is the bass that I saw on your Facebook page, and I don't know, this was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, but you said, look, it's almost new. There was a picture taken 1970 something. Is that the wife?
That was that was the wife. That was the wife. Yeah, and it initially had because it's got a Gibson EBO pickup in this position. Okay. Which on the Yamaha, this is a DiMarzio version. But I initially had 4 knobs, but I never used the tone control for the P bass, so I took it off. And but these 2 knobs were for the Gibson pickup, so I had Gibson knobs on there, and then Fender knobs on the other 2, and eventually I made them all Fender knobs. And but that was I started hacking away at that bass very early on. My dad and my brother were pretty good mechanical skilled people, so there's a lot of tools around the house and things like that. And I did take wood shop in high school, and one of my favorite subjects I ever took in school, and I've learned so much from it. It saved me tens of thousands of dollars being able to fix stuff and do things that I would have never known anything about unless I took that. So of course that applied to my bass, and because it's made of wood. And so I have done a lot of work on my instruments on my own, which is nice because you can kind of fine tune it to yourself instead of giving it to somebody, getting it back, going close but no cigar, one more, back and forth. So this way I can really get it to where I want it to be. That was a big help, I think, in the early years because I wasn't fighting the bass ever.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. See, Yeah, I'm not that great. I didn't pay attention in wood shop because Mr. Hood, he
Mine
I
was
don't
Mr.
know,
Hodge, so it's
Mr.
close.
Hodge. We're close, but Mr. Hood didn't. I don't think he cared. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, Mr. Hood, you're a great guy, but I just thought he was like, whatever. You're either here or you don't. And I was in my adolescent years where I was like, whatever.
Yeah, we had this guy, Mr. Hodge. He was a great teacher. He was
Yeah,
engaging and interesting, and it was a great experience in school. I mean, I enjoy a lot of self education. I'm a very avid reader. I'm a science buff. I'm a history buff. I'm a language buff. I'm not a school guy. I don't do
I
school
understood.
well. On my own, I do it, but not in school. So this is great. Mr. Hodges' class, woodshop, Ken Maurice Senior High School. It was that was a great thing for me. That was just really helped me. Now when I have to explain things to people making these bases or modifying them, I know exactly what to say, and it makes sense with the technology of wood craftsmanship.
Yeah.
You know, grain and face grain, side grain, end grain, and different characteristics of wood and how you cut it and deal with it. So they've been very helpful.
So I'm looking at the base you're holding right now. I mean, a maple neck, right?
Yeah,
And then,
we've got
okay.
These three screws go directly in, and these go in at an angle like this.
Yeah.
Reach in and grab the neck and pull it into the pocket.
Okay.
So the one problem I had with the original P base, because when I do a neck bend, the neck would shift in the pocket like this.
Yeah.
So not that much, but incrementally enough so that then the strings would be like this, and I'd have to take it and snap it back.
Right.
So the way the screws hold the fender necks in, the hole through the body there should be a shank there, not threads. It's actually an incorrect screw. I'm not criticizing Fender because they're great and they've changed the world, but that's not the correct screw for that. So I tried fixing it by shimming it and torquing it down, but then we got the Yamaha. The one weak spot we have, or for me, of course, not everybody does a ridiculous neck bending either, so it's all my fault no matter what. But we worked on that neck to body joint right away, got it really solid from the very first version. It had a piece of metal in there that went way deep into the body, and then the next one was all wood, and this one is the third and probably final version of that neck to body joint with those extra screws in there.
Man, that's awesome. That is super cool. I got the Schecter over here, and I don't think it's that. Yep, it's all just straight on in there.
Yeah, they're fine. You'll never have a problem with it. It's the same with the P bass. I mean, it was kind of beat up and cracked, my original old P bass, and I didn't want it to get any more destroyed or lost or stolen on the road. Right. So I retired it because it was a very, very valuable thing to me.
Sure.
So I needed a replacement for it. And we took all the dimensions from that original P bass, and it's got a 68 telly neck, so we got all those dimensions that are duplicated here. Exactly where that knob is. So as I'm playing, I know right away to get to that volume control without even thinking or looking. It's the exact same place it is on the P. Nice. So we grandfathered all the changes. There's a little scalloping on the fretboard up here. The last 5 frets are smaller fret wire for a little more accurate intonation up here. All of that came from that bass and was done properly on the Yamaha, because a lot of the mods I did on that were kind of hack. But the craftsmanship of Yamaha shows through, and they did a perfect job of it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you said is it only scalloping down at the bottom? Or?
Yeah, just halfway across. I don't know if you can see it on the thing.
There's I see it. Yep. Cool.
And it goes halfway across, because you couldn't push that low E string down the lid.
Yeah.
Unless you were Godzilla, maybe. And it's not really a necessary thing. I did it in my later years with the P bass, but if you're bending a note that high, you get that up to G. So having the P bass ends at an E flat. One more fret gives you an E note, which is handy in rock because there's a lot of songs in the key of E.
Right.
And the ability to bend up to the G means you're in E minor, which is another important tonality in rock music. So it helps with that a little bit.
One of my friend Big Mike, he asked a question, and he asked it very strangely, but how I took it was, how do you, and I think we kind of touched on this because you practice all the time, is how do you combine so many different styles for any given, whether you're doing something with Steve Vai or you're doing stuff with the Winery Dogs or you're doing Talas stuff, like it's almost like you're a different bass player, or you're just you're a rounded musician, but all of a sudden here you are playing this and you're like, what the, like this is so cool. How have you developed your craft that way?
Well, I grew up at a time when radio played everything.
Yeah.
You'd hear in a half an hour, you'd hear Joni Mitchell, Three Dog Night, Grand Funk Railroad, Schubert's 12th Symphony. I made that up, or whatever. All in the same time period, and then pop radio included everything from Conway Twitty to
Conway Twitty.
To what's the name of the band? I forgot. Anyway, heavier bands and
sure,
all kinds of things. So it was kind of, and when we played in clubs, we had to play a set list that was varied, and we usually have a set list of about 40 or 50 songs. You need a couple slow songs just for people to dance, and we slugged it out in the clubs for decades, being a copy band before I ever even thought about writing a song. Not unlike almost every other band that there ever was. I got the Beatles' first demo in my iTunes, 20 songs. Their very first demo to Decca Records. Guess how many of those songs were originals?
How many?
None.
0. Wow.
0. So it was a thing to learn to play a lot of different styles. My first band out of high school was a horn band, Chicago Blood, Sweat, and Tears style. Then I got into a band playing all Grand Funk and Cream and Hendrix and a lot of singing bands, Three Dog Night and all that stuff. And then I was a big fan early on of a lot of jazz that was pretty much out of my league as far as understanding or being able to play, but I was fascinated by it. So I a lot of players now, maybe it's a good thing, I don't know, but they're kind of focused on just this one type of music that they only listen to and they don't listen to anything else. That's might be a good thing, depending on the person and situation. That you're laser focused on one type of thing, you're probably going to be pretty good at it. But for my money, that variation between styles and as things went through time, we were there and watched it evolve from "I Want to Hold Your Hand" to "The Long and Winding Road" to the White Album. So the evolution of that particular band, the Beatles, and then every other band around them started out with love songs and songs about girls, and later on it turned into psychedelic and prog and fusion and all kinds of things as well. So I think covering them all is wise for any player, but there's nothing wrong with laser focus on one thing if that's what you'd like to do, I guess.
Okay, yeah. That was my problem in high school. All I did was play thrash metal because I didn't know any better. But as I grew up, we branched out. Maybe not as much as you've branched out, but man. Hey, so we've talked about everything touring, gear, and now I like to talk about the beyond. If there's any beyond stories, do you have any stories from the great beyond? And that can be ghosts, God. Taking a quick moment to pause here, y'all. So, can you tell I'm nervous? I'm a little nervous. It's Billy Sheehan, man. I couldn't even pronounce his name right. Anyway, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about a podcast called Expanding Reality. You've probably heard me mention it on the show before. It's a great show hosted by Brandon Thomas. They talk about all kinds of stuff. They get into stuff like how I call it the beyond. They go beyond the beyond. They talk about aliens, conspiracy theories, you name it, it's on his show. Hippie stuff, crystals, magic, whatever you can get your hand into, flat earth stuff, everything. They talk about all of it and they explore it. They're expanding your reality. It's freaking fantastic. I listen to it all the time. I recommend you guys listen to it all the time too. There's a link below to check out Brandon's podcast. Please and thank you. Now back to me being nervous as hell interviewing Billy Sheehan. Aliens.
We had Nest cameras in my condo in LA, and I had one in my garage. My garage had a gate to get in the section of the building with all the garage doors, and then a garage door itself. So it was a relatively safe place, and lived in Sherman Oaks, in a great neighborhood, great spot. And so I had a Nest camera in my garage. At one pointed out to the street, a couple others around pointing different ways, and I get a alert if there's any motion.
Yeah.
And so I got a motion in the garage. So I walk down there, I open the door, and there's nothing. I close it. And they usually videotapes the motion. So I didn't think of it at the time. I went back and I said, what that motion was on it? And there was about the size of a softball or a cantaloupe orb.
Oh, no.
Glowing, just glowing. I didn't know if there was, but you could tell by the way it moved, it was not being affected by wind or anything. It was just floating through the garage. And it happened about 10 times. We saw it about 10 times. And a couple times I'd see it, and I'd go down there, try to open the door quick, and a couple times I tried to open it real careful and quiet, and never actually physically saw it. So I went online and looking around at Nest if there's any kind of a phenomenon with the technology or something. No. And some people were trying to say it was a dust particle, but this was a glowing orb, obviously this big, going right through the garage. So I still don't know what it was, but I'm a science buff.
Right.
And was an amateur astronomer when I was a kid, and a paleontologist, and a biologist, and microscopes, and I had all kinds of things. So my mom worked for Roswell Park Institute. It was a famous cancer institute in Buffalo, New York. She also worked with a couple of the physicians when I was growing up. We always had medical texts and scientific things around us all the time. So I was not one to be a ghost.
Right. Yeah, sure.
My first thought wasn't that it was a ghost. I thought maybe something electronic or something, whatever. But there was still absolutely no explanation for it. And there were, like I said, about 10 videos of orbs floating in my garage. It was pretty interesting.
I believe it. When we played the club that's no longer there that Dimebag was killed in, and it was King's X that played the very first show after that had happened.
And there were still bullet holes in the wall.
Yeah, and there's this carpet was kind of anyway, and it wasn't fun. But there was photos taken that day, and it was when you had digital. It was before these, so it was like digital. It was a digital camera, and I took these photos of the stage and us setting up and us getting ready, and all throughout that. Now it could be dust particles, but all throughout that there's orbs on the stage, but it's only a couple of them.
Interesting.
Pretty big. I got the photos. I'll put them here or here or here. But the man, that's great, dude. This has been great. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Are you planning on going and seeing King's X when they come around?
And seeing King's X, I hope I get time to.
I hope you get time too, man. Yeah, their new record sounds really good.
I played on the drummer's solo record. A couple of really great songs. They reminded me of the Beatles so much. And Doug sang on I did a track with Doug. Me, Vinny Caliuta on drums, Zing Van guitar, and Doug Pinnick singing Light Up the Sky by Van Halen.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah, that's awesome.
And Doug killed on it too. He's so great. And then Doug sang a track on one of my solo records too, came over. It was just fantastic. So I hope I get a chance to see him.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, everybody. This has been Ryan 13 with the 13 and Billy Sheehan. Did I say it right?
Yes,
I said it right this time. All right.
Thanks, bro. I hope I'll see you around, okay?
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
You too.